Hello and welcome to the Minds on the Frontline podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Lassers. I am a firefighter, paramedic, educator, and content creator. My co-hosts today are Mike Mattern, a firefighter, paramedic, and peer support team expert, and Scott Taylor, a retired police officer and the lead peer with the FST5 program. In this episode, we examine how Michigan identified gaps in mental and behavioral health support for first responders, which led to the development of a coordinated statewide system that became the Frontline Strong Together 5 program. For many years, critical incidents in the frontline community were often followed by limited structured support. Responders were often expected to keep working while managing the effects of trauma primarily on their own, and mental and behavioral health efforts varied widely from one department or agency to another. Across the state, leaders within different first responder disciplines saw the same warning signs and heard the same stories. While each organization experienced these challenges through its own lens, the underlying issues were strikingly similar. That shared recognition prompted leaders from the Fraternal Order of Police, the Police Officers Association of Michigan, and the Michigan Professional Firefighters Union to discuss whether existing approaches were sufficient and whether a broader, coordinated solution was needed. As those conversations continued, Michigan lawmakers also recognized the growing mental and behavioral health needs of first responders and the importance of addressing them statewide across all disciplines. That recognition supported the use of state funding, enabling these parallel efforts to move from discussion to action. It marked a shift from organizations and lawmakers working in isolation to working collaboratively. As leaders compared experiences across disciplines and sectors, the Frontline Strong Together 5 program began to take shape as a coordinated, statewide program to better support first responders and their immediate family members. This episode focuses on the Michigan Fraternal Order of Police's perspective on why the FST5 program was needed and how it came together. Joining us in the conversation is Mike Sauger, a Warren police officer and the current president of the Michigan Fraternal Order of Police. Mike brings decades of experience in law enforcement, including time in dispatch, patrol, and statewide leadership. Throughout his career, he has seen how critical incidents were handled, how officers and dispatchers often navigated trauma on their own, and how organizational culture shaped access to support. The FOP is the largest organization of sworn law enforcement officers in the United States, representing more than 370,000 members nationwide. In Michigan, the FOP represents law enforcement professionals across the state and plays a significant role in labor representation, advocacy, officer safety, and wellness initiatives. During this conversation, Mike shares how the Michigan FOP approached the need for a statewide mental and behavioral health system, and how collaboration with the Police Officers Association of Michigan and the Michigan Professional Firefighters Union helped to lay the groundwork for the Frontline Strong Together 5 program. Minds on the Frontline is presented by the Frontline Strong Together 5 program. FST5 offers 24/7 mental health and crisis support for Michigan's first responders and their families. If you or someone else you know needs help, call 1-833-34-STRONG or visit fst5.org to learn more and explore our free training options for Michigan's frontline agencies. Wayne State University administers FST5 with grant funding from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services. Together, we're dedicated to strengthening the health, resilience, and well-being of Michigan's frontline community. Please follow us on social media and enjoy the show. Mr. Mike Sauger, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks
for
having me.
Good morning, sir.
Well, thanks for driving all the way over here today. Why don't you kick us off, tell everybody who you are, what you do, and where you do it.
Sure. My name is Mike Sauger. I'm a police officer for the City of Warren. I've been with the City of Warren for 27 years now. Started out right out of high school as a dispatcher, did that for 5 years and been an officer since. Currently, I'm their union president in Warren. I'm also the state president for the Michigan Fraternal Order of Police.
So that's a good general overview, but how did you find your way to the role you are now with the Fraternal Order of Police?
Honestly, it started out, I was a young officer in Warren, and I had a weekend off, which is rare for young officers and firefighters and dispatchers. And had a senior officer that came up and said, "I noticed you're off this weekend. What are you doing?" And before I could finish my sentence, he says, "You're going to the FOP conference. We need somebody to represent us," and kind of forced me to go. By the end of that conference in Kalamazoo, I was working a couple of committees and volunteered somewhere else, and I think I became the treasurer of our lodge at the end of that conference, and that was 20 years ago. Got involved with the FOP, liked the things that we were doing for our membership, and continued from there. Somehow got roped into voluntold to help on some state events. And next thing you know, I'm on the state board. In 2018, I was elected state president. I've been that ever since. Quasi-executive director and part-time lobbyist, helping out our lobbying team as well. And I'm still doing that to this day.
Well, that's a really interesting road to go from high school to dispatcher, police officer, FOP.
Yep. It was not really the course that I planned in life, but that's the way it took me.
Well, good for you being at least open to it, not being so stubborn to stay with one thing, because you seem like a go-with-the-flow kind of guy, but you also seem happy with what you do.
I love it. I wouldn't have changed it. It wasn't what I picked, especially when I was working patrol and with Scott here, and I had no idea that was my plan, and it just kind of came out that way. So here I am, and it's working out well.
Out of all those roles you've had so far, which is the most stressful?
I think balancing all of them together at the same time would be the most stressful. They're rewarding at times. It's tough to go on a vacation because your phone doesn't stop. It's rewarding. I enjoy it, but all of them together, it is the stress.
I would have thought you would have picked the union president.
Being anybody's president, the buck stops with you, and everybody wants the answer, and everybody wants a decision, and the hardest part is trying to tell somebody the answer that they don't want to hear, but that's the answer. So that's tough. It's tough no matter what the role, but it is what it is.
So over the past couple of years, obviously the Michigan FOP has really kind of prioritized mental health, behavioral health for their officers. To speak to that a little bit personally, were there any kind of moments in your career as a police officer or your role in the FOP that really made you saw there was a need for mental health for all of the officers and all of the people that you support? Was there anything there that really you went like, okay, we really need to do something about this?
It started out with the National FOP. I was at a training seminar. I don't even remember where or when. This was many years ago. And other states were starting to form programs, and they had therapy programs, and they had different things that they were doing immediately after an incident. They would have a critical incident, and they would do something about it immediately. And in my head, I thought, well, that's crazy. That's kind of a strange thing. And I go through a couple of scenarios or a couple incidents that have happened to me in my career, and I still remember one from dispatch. I was brand new dispatcher. I was on day shift. I just finished training and took a 911 call. I looked down at the positron screen, and it was my grandmother's house. It was a nurse that was there and doing CPR on a patient at the house. So I was walking her through the steps and dispatching the paramedics, and it took me a minute to recognize. I recognized the address. I recognized the name. But to kind of deal with that, to realize that they're doing CPR on my grandmother, I said something out loud in the room. Nobody at the time cared. I had two senior dispatchers that are long since retired. Nobody cared. They just continued about just continued about their day. Finished the call, realized that she had passed away, and I just had to sit there for the rest of the day and just kind of deal with it. And that was one of the incidents that popped into my head. I had a few more that the same thing. As an officer, I was out on a suicide. It was a pop-top, as we call it, self-inflicted gunshot wound to the head, no family, no nothing, waiting on the medical examiner, and they take the body. I'd already picked up my lunch. I go outside, and I'm eating my Thai food in the car, and I look down at my Thai food. Yeah, it looks just like what was in the house there. Yeah. Just go about my day. I finished my report, finished my lunch, continuing going about life. And as I was sitting there in this seminar, I was hearing about things that are going on, and I said, we need to talk about this in Michigan because this probably should be addressed. So we came back. I started having some conversations with Scott, had conversations with our lobbyist, and had conversations with MPFFU. We learned that there were programs in the state. They were small, they were spread out. There wasn't a universal program. There wasn't even a trend that was being taught universally. It was just pockets. Some departments and areas of the state were doing nothing, and other states or other parts of the state were doing something. And it just spawned some conversations that led to conversations with lobbyists, and fast forward to here we are.
Is it fair to say the first 20 years of our career, there was no debriefing? You literally, you involved in a shooting, you were sent home. 2 days later, you're back on the road, basically, as long as you were cleared. there was no afterthought to critical incidents for the first 20 years of our career.
No, I mean, I'm going to correct you, as I've been doing for 20 years in our career. I'm going to correct you.
That is true. That is true.
I think there was a debriefing. I think the debriefing was done at the FOP hall with a case of
Yes.
beer following the incident. And
So
that's-
maybe
well-
not a clinically approved method of
oh
coping.
no, nothing clinically approved.
and it
Nothing,
was-
But certainly
But-
camaraderie.
Yes.
yes,
And I'll correct you, it was not a case of beer.
true.
There were more. There were multiple.
Well, a case could be held in by a forklift with you got to
That's
need
right.
to pop it open.
Yeah, but no, that's how we dealt with things. And you're 100% right. We would go to the hall because we have our facility. We have a members room, so it's a private bar basically. Sure. And that's where we would debrief. That's how we did it.
Weird. A clubhouse for first responders had some cocktails available.
That's exactly what it is.
Odd.
Yep.
Thinking about like the different disciplines with first responders, and I think about dispatch and I think about police officers kind of in the same realm here, because at the firehouse we can come back and talk to 5, 6, 7 different people, right? In your dispatch center, you might be the only one. You might have one other person, or if you're in the patrol car, you're there by yourself.
Or at most, you have a partner.
Yes.
That's it.
So, I mean, the support system that's there for you guys is not as big as it is at other.
It's not as immediately available.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like it's not just so passive.
Yes.
I'm going to pass you in the hall, somebody in the hallway in
Yes.
10 minutes when I get back to the station.
Yes.
This guy's stuck in a squad car.
Do you guys think that plays a bigger part for officer mental health, is the fact that there's not that immediate kind of support system there when you get back?
Absolutely. There's absolutely no doubt about it. The last shooting I was involved in, after we got everything done and over with, I went back to my scout car and that adrenaline dump came in. And I literally had to pull over for a half hour. 2 hours later, I ran into someone who said, "Hey, you okay?" That was the extent of and it's definitely a big difference.
So like you said, you were integral in the conversations, especially early, to recognize that first responders need some type of assistance. And so you worked with lawmakers to kind of get us to where we are in those early conversations to create the FST5. Take us back to the early days of before there was FST5. How did we arrive here?
So it was one of those things where other states were doing things, and with part of the FOP, it's 380,000 members across the country. We're just a small piece of that, the world's largest law enforcement group. And seeing what other states have already done, it was just over 6 years ago, the National FOP formed their Division of Officer Wellness. And they've been putting on training nationwide. They've been doing different counselings. They've been vetting clinicians and therapies. And things were happening, just not happening in Michigan as a group. They were happening in small pockets. They were happening in local departments, but very, very few. Definitely no sharing of resources. Some people didn't even recognize that there was a need. There was still the stigma that I'm not going to talk to anybody. I'm just going to counsel myself with over alcohol or over something else. And that was still going on. So it led us to start the conversation that we need to do something. And we started looking at what other states were doing. We started looking at, well, what's the first step? First step is always money. Where do we get it? We started having conversations with some of the retired first responders in the legislature. They're always our best friends. They're always our first responder resources. So we started that conversation, which spawned into, yep, let's get some money together. Let's start putting the grants together. Let's start figuring out what we're going to do for the next step. So that was a part that I was definitely involved in. I'm proud of the conversations that were had to get that part of it going. And then at that point, I realized I have way too much going on to be involved at all in the next step of the process. That's where I said I need somebody who you look at him and he'd be the one that would break the stigma. And that's where I kind of assigned my vice president at the time, Scott Taylor, to say, this is going to be you.
Voluntold?
Voluntold. And that's where my part of it was over with at that point, and I threw it to Scott.
Well, it's a good thing. It starts at the top a lot of times with recognizing the need and then understanding which of your resources is going to carry out that objectively the way you have your vision. So well done, sir. He's done a pretty good job so far.
So far. I mean, it's early yet.
Well, I was screaming and kicking because I didn't want to do it. And like everything else that you asked me to do, I'm like, all right, I don't like it, but I'll do it. And when you talk about breaking the stigma, I'm telling you, I was the suck-it-up buttercup guy. Like you wouldn't believe, 6'3", 300 pounds, lots of tattoos going, this stuff isn't real. If I can do it, everybody can do it, right? Everybody can buy in if I can buy in.
Well, and I think it's big when you have the leader of an organization, like you're talking right now about different things that happened to you personally that you went, holy crap, this is what we needed. Like, I went through this. I don't want them to go through the same thing. And you were able to admit that. You know what I mean? I think that's a big portion of all of this. Now, getting back when you started talking to some of these legislators who were former first responders, when you were talking to them and they asked for your input on, okay, how do we do this? What did you want them to kind of understand about the job and the impact that it has on us? And how did that kind of shape and form what FST5 is now?
It's funny because, I told my stories, and they're minuscule compared to what other people have experienced on the front lines. But we've all have them. And you don't think about them. I don't think about these stories all the time. But as I was sitting there in this seminar listening to different things, these were stories that were starting to pop up. And there were some other ones. And you do the same thing when even talking to some retired firefighters or talking to retired police officers. And if you really say, hey, listen, in your career, is that something that you didn't sleep well a couple times, or sometimes you woke up and you were thinking about this call that you had? That came back to some of these legislators that they've experienced something. Could be minor, but it's something that affected them. And it's something that needed to be addressed, and something that they immediately saw the need and said, yep, we have to do this. We have to address something. We have to change the stigma. And that's where that kind of started from. So it was an easy conversation to have because they started coming forward to say, yep, I agree. We got to do something.
Yeah, I think there's that unspoken language amongst it doesn't matter. Police, dispatch, firefighters, EMS, it doesn't matter. We all kind of have that unspoken language that we've all had something or some things, right? We don't talk about it. We don't necessarily think about it all the time, but we share that, right? Yeah, and it's an easy conversation to have amongst first responders because no one understands it but us. And I think that's great that you guys started out with those legislatures to be the ones to really kind of champion this. That was phenomenal because there's not a lot of explanation needed.
They were the key to get the ball rolling in Lansing. That was the key to get rolling was our lobbyists and figureheads. But without those legislators, the retired first responders, I don't think this would have come to fruition.
As a part of that, you need to coordinate with groups like yours. So
Yes.
Talk about that experience teaming up with the Michigan Professional Firefighters Union, the Police Officers Association of Michigan, to kind of all walk in together saying this is necessary.
Again, that was an easy conversation. We're usually on the same side of the aisle for certain things. Sometimes we disagree on the tactics or how we go about things, but ultimately, we protect the first responders. We each have our own uniqueness. The FOP, our uniqueness is we have a labor division, so we are a union, but we have members who are non-union that are part of us, and that's our bigger part. We represent frontline first responders all the way up to chiefs and sheriffs that are members of the FOP. So we're a little bit different than the other competition or other organizations in that. But it's a uniqueness that we all can work together. And we had that conversation, had a couple of Zoom calls very early on. We're all on the same page of what needed to happen. We needed to have a set of resources, tools, professionals that we can call and that we can go to and we can refer our members to. And we need education on to watch the warning signs and what do we do. And all these things are pieces of the puzzle that we all needed. It was kind of a group effort that we unified to do that.
And I think it's great that as unions, you went in there to do it, but you went in there and just didn't do it for unions. It was for anybody. It was the people who are reserves or paid on call or volunteer. And you fought for those that don't necessarily have that collective voice, which is awesome as well.
There's a misconception as part of this was moving forward that it's the unions. We got to deal with the union. Well, the FOP, as I said, we have a union side of it. We have a labor side, but we also have members who are non-union. We have part-time police officers in the state of Michigan. Mm-hmm. We have part-time dispatchers in the state of Michigan. They're not in unions. Some of them are, but they're to the point where you can't just say this is only for the unions. As you said, the paid on call, the volunteers, the reserves, they are experiencing the exact same things. They are on the same front lines. They need the protection. They need the help. They need these resources available as well.
Absolutely.
I think that's a really important thing to underscore is that, and you're one of many labor unions in the state of Michigan. I mean, Michigan's been a classically union state to begin with, especially Southeast Michigan. But I think it's really important to point out that the union boss is saying that every human being, union or not union, in this type of role needs some level of help. Some level at the state level.
Absolutely. There are states, and Michigan's not one of them, but there are states where being in a police union is illegal. You can't be in the union. So having the mentality that you have to be in the union for this type of protection is ridiculous. And again, it's just a common misconception. Everybody just believed that everybody was in a police union in the state of Michigan. Everyone's in the firefighters union. There's situations where they're not. So we just have to represent and protect firefighters and dispatchers and police officers, regardless of their affiliation.
Absolutely. Couldn't have said any better. You know what I mean? So from your perspective, where you sit, what does a strong statewide support system look like?
Ultimately, I think in first responder communities, it needs to be that everybody knows where to get the answers. It may not be for you, it may not be for your partner, but it may be for a family member. It may be for a coworker down the road that you can refer to somebody. We all need to watch for the signs, but we all need to know what to do once we've recognized something. And that's the key. So I think the education part of it is the most important part. Here are the resources, but here's how you get them, or here's how you get a question answered, which is one of the things that we've been doing, is making sure that all of our staff throughout the state, all of our lodges throughout the state have the resources available, and they know who to call when they have a question, a concern, an issue. Because it's not going to happen at business hours. It's going to happen in the middle of the night.
Right.
It's going
Absolutely.
to happen on a holiday. It's going to happen when you least expect it. That's when we need to know where the answers are.
Shout out to you guys too on the police side and actually all the disciplines. More and more we're starting to see all this information come out pre-service.
Yes.
You know, in the academies, which 20 years ago I wish I would have had. So I mean, I give you guys credit as well. That's a step forward. That's a huge step forward to give the resources and the education early on in their careers.
It's the same thing that we're starting to see in some of the academies across the country, that is a financial wellness component up that's also being added. So not only is it a mental wellness, but a financial wellness, because that leads up to some of the issues that people have. So why don't teach them young of what a deferred compensation package is? What is this 457? You don't know that as an 18, 19, 20, 21-year-old kid coming out of high school, coming out of the academies. You don't know that. You don't know to sign up for these things or enroll. So going through the academy and learning these things and teaching them as they start is obviously the best way to go.
Absolutely.
Yeah, educate them before you brainwash them, because 2 or 3 years on the job, you're already getting that the suck it up buttercup.
It's an investment.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's a very good investment. The earlier you invest in education, the greater the long-term outcome of that knowledge that you input there.
Yes.
You go to your first training, and how you train is how you act. So if you can tap back into that memory of where do I go? Oh, yeah, there's that standard thing I can just call or look up and privately, without anybody looking in.
Well, it's career longevity too.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? I
totally.
think it prolongs your career, but it also prolongs your retirement as well. It sets them up for the long term.
We do an orientation for every new hire that comes in our department, and one of the things that we teach them as a role and as your union leader, our job is to keep you safe, happy, healthy for your entire career and beyond. And that's not just, hey, so they screw up and we got to protect them. It's financially, it's health, it's everything. And that's our job as a union leader, is not just to take care of them with just the financial component of their contract. It is to take care of them and get them set up for their life and their entire career and their health and their well-being and everything in between.
That's awesome.
That's amazing.
Yep.
Well, as we close out here, sir, what message would you like any first responder listening right now to take home?
You need to educate yourself to make sure that you know where the resources are. There is help available. There's resources available. There's partners out there that are willing to help and willing to plan, that that these resources exist. It could be a small department, it could be a big department, but there is somebody there that can help, and make sure you know where the resources are, because every one of us has seen it in your career, and if you haven't seen it yet, you either missed it or you're going to see it at some point where somebody's going to need help.
Thank you for your time, sir.
Thank you for coming in today.
No problem. Thank you, guys.
Thanks.
Thank you for listening to the Minds on the Frontline podcast. We have more great content coming out soon. Please check us out on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, X, and LinkedIn. And make sure to like and subscribe to all Minds on the Frontline podcast social media channels. Thank you, and have a great day.